We will not stop fighting. We will not put down our weapons until we reach your lands, until we take the head of every tyrant, and until the black flag is flying high in every single land, until we put the black flag on top of Buckingham Palace, until we put the black flag on top of the White House. We will not stop, and we will keep on fighting, and we will fight you, and we will defeat you bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Takbir!
You heard it, people. As this Australian teen said, ISIS won't stop until they put their black flag on Buckingham Palace, until they put the black flag on the White House, and until Justin Bieber fans man up and grow a long beard. A shocking result shook the world in a poll conducted by AlJazeera.net, the website of the famous Qatari channel Al Jazeera. The poll asked in Arabic, do you support the victories of ISIS? A vast majority of 81% of the poll respondents answered yes, we support the victories of ISIS, while only 19% answered no. A more shocking result in another poll conducted by Pew Research Center. ISIS has 63 million supporters in just 11 countries, with significant Muslim populations. As you can see in this infographic, the orange color represents the respondents who dislike ISIS, which are the majority. The green color represents those who support ISIS, which are a small minority. But the situation becomes problematic when we add those green numbers to each other. When you gather all those minorities, they form a huge number of supporters. 63 million supporters of ISIS in just 11 countries. 63 million of angry people who support beheading apostates, executing homosexuals, stoning adulterers, and amputating hands. 63 million! That's the equivalent of the population of the United Kingdom. Now, the big question that might be popping up in your mind, how can an average and simple Muslim become a solid supporter of those brutal practices by ISIS? The answer is religious scripture. Let me demonstrate it to you. So here we have the average Muslim who could be your friend or your neighbor, and we have the ISIS sympathizer or the fundamentalist if you like. They both believe in Quran and they view it as the sacred word of Allah. And they both believe in Hadith, which is the authentic sayings and deeds of the Prophet Muhammad, narrated by his companions and reported after his death in authentic books like Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. For example, it is not mentioned in Quran how many prayers should Muslims perform in the day, but it is detailed in Hadith. So whenever the average Muslim and the ISIS sympathizer get into any argument about any Islamic practice, the only judge between them both is Quran and Hadith. Now let's analyze the practices of ISIS and see if they are based on religious scripture. Let's go case by case. ISIS has been known for killing apostates. Whoever leaves the religion of Islam gets executed by ISIS. Many Muslims around the world are condemning these practices. But in a fight of ideologies, ISIS always gets the upper hand over moderate Muslims simply due to the fact that ISIS builds its arguments on the sayings and deeds of the Prophet Muhammad in the scripture. Take this hadith as an example. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Whoever changes his religion, then kill him." In another hadith, the Prophet also said, "It is not permissible to spill the blood of a Muslim except in three: the married person who commits adultery, a life for a life, and the one who leaves his religion and separates from the community." The hadith is as clear as day that if you leave Islam, you should be killed. So ISIS are just obeying the commandment of the Prophet. Then after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, his companions led by the first Caliph Abu Bakr unanimously waged a war campaign against all the tribes that left Islam until they embraced Islam again. These wars are famously known as Ridda wars or apostasy wars.
Round 2. Stoning adulterers.
The punishment of a married person if he or she commits adultery is death by way of stoning. ISIS practices this law in areas that they control. Their religious argument is very strong. Here is a piece of this argument. In Sahih al-Bukhari, the Jews brought to the Prophet a man and a woman from amongst them who have committed adultery. The Prophet ordered both of them to be stoned to death. In another hadith in Sahih Muslim, a married man confesses to adultery. The Prophet Muhammad orders him planted in the ground and pelted with stones. According to the passage, the first several stones caused such a pain that he tried to escape, but he was dragged back. In another hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet said, the child is to be attributed to one on whose bed he is born, and for a fornicator there is stoning.
Round 3. Killing homosexuals.
The LGBT community is not happy at all with what ISIS has been doing to their fellows. Executing gay people by way of throwing them off high buildings. The scripture they use to legitimize the punishment is reported in At-Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, and Ibn Majah. The Prophet says, whoever you find doing the action of the people of Lut, which means homosexual intercourse, execute the one who does it and the one to whom it is done. Then the companions of the Prophet after him were unanimously agreed on the execution of homosexuals. But they differed on one thing: how should homosexuals be executed? Some of the companions were of the view that homosexuals should be burned with fire, which was the view of Ali and also Abu Bakr. And some of the companions thought that they should be thrown from a high place, then have stones thrown at them. This was the view of Ibn Abbas. For example, if a gay person is caught in Dubai, they should just go to the top of Burj Khalifa and throw him down. And if the incident happens in New York, well, World Trade Center would do the work.
Round 4. Sex slaves.
Where to begin with this one? I think I should make a whole video just on the topic of slavery in Islam. Anyway, when ISIS invaded the province of Nineveh in Iraq, they enslaved Yazidi women. Yazidis are the followers of an ancient Mesopotamian religion. They believe that God put the world under the care of 7 angels. The chief of those 7 angels is called Melek Taus. They are monotheists, but this all doesn't matter because they are all considered by ISIS simply as infidels. Sharia law is clear that when Muslims face infidels in a war and Muslims triumph, they take booty in women and children as slaves. They can sell them in the slave market or keep them and have sex with the women. ISIS did all that to Yazidis. And whenever they were faced with condemnation by other Muslims, ISIS pointed to the hundreds of texts in Quran and Hadith stating that their practice is in full compatibility with Sharia law. Quran says about the good believers, and those who abstain from sex, except from their wives, or the captives and slaves that their right hands possess, for then they are free from blame. Believers who have sex with their female slaves are free from blame. There are many verses legalizing slavery in Quran. Go and check them by yourself. Here are the references. The Prophet Muhammad, who is the first Quran exegete, gave his companions the green light to have sex with their female slaves. Take this hadith as an example. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, while he was sitting with Allah's apostle, he said, "O Allah's apostle, we get female captives as our share of booty, and we are interested in their prices. What is your opinion about coitus interruptus?" The Prophet said, "Do you really do that? It is better for you not to do it. No soul that which Allah has destined to exist, but will surely come into existence." So the companions of the Prophet were worried that the price of their female slaves would go down if they impregnate them. So they were practicing coitus interruptus, which means withdrawing the penis before ejaculation. The Prophet advised his companion not to withdraw their penises because if a soul is meant to be, then nothing could stop the destination of Allah. Abraham Lincoln would surely be very upset to hear that. What about ISIS selling slaves in markets? In a hadith, a man decided that a slave of his would be freed after his death, and later on he was in need of money. So the Prophet took the slave and said, "Who will buy this slave from me?" Nu'aym ibn Abdullah bought him for such and such price, and the Prophet gave him the slave. For more hadiths and texts, go and check those references.
Round 5. Cutting off hands.
ISIS is well known for cutting off hands of thieves. Just look for the raw videos to see the brutal scenes if you can bear watching them. The Quran has commanded the believers to cut off the hand of the thief. Chapter 5, verse 38. As for the thief, both male and female cut off their hands. It is the reward of their deeds, an exemplary punishment from Allah. The rounds are endless: lashing, chapter 24 verse 2, crucifixion, chapter 5 verse 33, destroying monuments, Sahih Muslim, book 11, hadith 120. As you can see, all these practices of ISIS are based on religious scripture, which puts the moderate Muslim in a real embarrassing dilemma. So whenever a moderate Muslim raises his voice to condemn those practices and say that they have nothing to do with Islam, he faces a barrage of religious scripture thrown at him. That is why moderate Muslims are calling for a modern reinterpretation of Islam and its scripture, a reform of Islam. But what makes this task difficult is that the literal explanation of texts almost always beats the figurative interpretation in the eyes of a believer. When a simple Muslim hears in chapter 5 verse 38, "Cut off the hands of the thief," for him it is clear and simple, cut off the hands of the thief. So in these bouts of arguments between both sides, the literal explanation of fundamentalists will always have the upper hand over the figurative apologist approach of moderate Muslims, which means more supporters of ISIS, which means more power. Until then, peace out. This was my first video on my channel. As a vibe, I will be making more on Islamic affairs in the future. Subscribe!